can get started now, and if some more friend is going to join us, I will invite them silently to enter the conversation. We have chosen the topic of entities and the possibility to be freed from entities by somebody else, because we have heard often about this, and lately we have watched a video on YouTube about the topic, about those who offer to free you from, say, an attachment of an entity, or sometimes called a possession in the more serious cases. And I thought we would want to look at this from the particular point of view of inner knowledge, because the typical approach we have seen by shamans or sorcerers that offer their service to assess the situation and then run some practice to deliver you from the entity. Normally the approach they have is, send me your description of what the problem is, send me a picture of you, then I'll give you a free assessment of what I see. Even from a distance, that doesn't seem to be a problem for the, let's say, workers of the astral plane. And then they give you what they see. For example, they say, I see an astral larvae are around you, and I see a demon that follows you and some holes in your aura. Don't worry, I can help. And then you can choose to contract this person. This is, let's say, a reasonable approach. So you can evaluate if what you're told resonates with you and seems plausible. It becomes more interesting if you ask 2 or more and you get different answers. At that point, you start thinking, oh, what does this mean? And on one side, you think, well, as long as there is a similarity, maybe I can consider this good enough. But on the other hand, you wonder how much of the personality of the particular shaman or sorcerer interferes with what this person sees. And of course, there is a counterpart to that. That is, say you decide to pay him or her and say, yeah, go ahead, free me from these demons. Now, how much will his personality interfere in this? What if the things that he sees are projections of his own personality, for example? What if he or she decides that maybe he wants to be useful for you for a longer time, and maybe can drag things along a little longer? You have to have a big amount of trust in somebody that often you have never met. And all of this based on the first reading, which can be very different from the reading of other people. So it is a challenge to make a decision under such conditions. And I thought that was worth a bit of a conversation here. First of all, because you might find yourselves in a situation where you want to do this. So maybe we can come up with some interesting remarks and advice. And also because it lends itself to one further look at the central topic that we always like to deal with, that is inner knowledge. So in order to start with the right foot, let's now do a bit of relaxation. Let's remember ourselves, let's feel our presence, and spend a couple of minutes to become more centered. So as always, we relax, we close our eyes if it's something that makes us feel better, I will stop my video as well. Then we take a comfortable position in our chair and start scanning our body from the inside. As always, the seeing is done by the observer, who may be perceived approximately at the center of our head. So let's say our essence through the pineal gland is scanning our body. Let's have a look at the findings. Any tension, what our breathing is like. We can also observe our position. It may be interesting to discover what our position is. And let's always feel the observer as well as what is being observed. The two perceptions go together for a proper presence. Let us now move our inner look at the mind and see any thoughts are passing by. Still feeling our presence very clearly. The observer is not the thinker, but it can see thoughts very well. Finally, let's turn our gaze towards the center of our chest, looking for any energy moving about. Our feelings express themselves mainly in the area of the solar plexus. As always, keeping in contact with the observer. We are in the here and now. We can feel our body, we can see our thoughts, we can perceive our feelings. We are completely present. Also take a moment to feel your heartbeat. Where in your body can you perceive that? You may discover it's all of your body, or maybe not. That depends. I'm starting my video again to come back in contact with the so-called outside world. Let's assume there is something outside which we call the outside world. One day we will discover if that is actually true. For now, it's a reasonable assumption. And let's move on with our topic. Entities. They are mentioned and named in various ways in most or maybe all of the ancient traditions and sacred scripts, generally in negative terms as, let's say, undesired guests or parasites that may enter our being in one way or another and then cause problems or literally hijack our life. They feed on our feelings often. They seem to be particularly fond of negative feelings. So in this, they really look like the famous archons that are mentioned in the ancient Gnostic texts. There are occasions where they seem to be beings that float in the astral world and just take the opportunity to stick to us because of certain conditions. There are opportunities where, there are cases, better said, where they represent a human being that has decided to interfere with us, like projecting a part of herself or himself. And they may also be beings of a different order, like thought forms, for example, which get in touch with our world of thoughts and ideas. And for some sort of similarity of vibration, they stick to us. There is an important part here that I have kept on the side, but which is really the focus of what I'd like to cover today. That is, for example, energetic beings which take the opportunity to stick to us. Now, why do they choose us instead of somebody else? Or in another case, let's say somebody projects part of its being towards us, say reaches out in the astral world and comes to do something to us, maybe something negative. Why did this person choose us and not somebody else? Or sometimes they say larvae from the astral world enter if there are holes in our aura. Why are there holes in our aura? So what makes us more susceptible to be attacked, or our aura to be penetrated? Or what makes it more likely that somebody will want to attack us? Now, I think you see where I'm going. All the answers lie in our level of being. How many enemies are we entertaining in the world around us that will want to attack? How many low-level thoughts are we entertaining in our mind that will attract similar thought forms or energy beings? What type of habits of, let's say, bad destructive habits or self-destructive habits will tear a hole in our aura and make it easier for some being to enter the aura? The answer is inevitably our level of being, that is, how developed we are towards the perfection to which we are called, let's say, the level to which we may aspire to get. So what efforts we have done in our lifetime to rise above our starting point? What defects have we diminished or completely eliminated? How many enemies have we forgiven? How many of our self-destructive habits, like smoking or drinking too much, have we been able to do away with? So the answer to this basically dictates how many and how large are the entities that you may find attached to yourself. Do you think it's a coincidence that Jesus had no entities attached? Of course not. So you may expect that entity presence or parasites presence is a direct effect of how low our immune system in the astral world, so to speak, is you may see this as a parallel of ordinary illnesses. If your immune system is in good shape, there is very little chance for, say, a virus or bacteria to attack you successfully, because they will be repelled. You don't even realize that. But if you are very weakened, and there are many reasons for that, then it's easier for you to fall ill. And it is true that the illness may have come from the outside through a virus, for example. But it's also true what I think Pasteur said at the end of his life, that the bacteria or the virus is nothing. It's the terrain in which they land which dictates everything. So you may throw as many viruses as you want at somebody who is very healthy, and his immune system will do away with them effortlessly. But a single, well, let's say a single virus landing onto a very weakened immune system will wreak havoc in that person. So is the virus guilty or not? Well, the virus has no will of its own. It will basically do where the wind blows and reproduce itself according to its program. So there is little point in accusing a virus of attacking you. It basically is a fact of nature. But how well you have kept your environment will prepare, like unroll the red carpet for the virus to reproduce, or just push it away. So from our point of view, astral parasites are just a parallel of ordinary illnesses, that instead of being in the world of physics and chemistry, they live in the world of thoughts and feelings, so the astral world, in other words. And you may see the same effect in terms of your strength if you work on yourself. It's just that working on yourself in the physical realm has more to do with the proper nutrition, proper sleep, exercise, exposing yourself to the sunlight, fresh air, while in the astral world that is similar but on a different level. So exposing yourself to ideas which are positive, it's not entertaining bad thoughts. So a bad thought is the equivalent of a cigarette in a different plane, or of a bad food, or not watching a horrible movie before going to bed, because digesting that is just as difficult as digesting a heavy meal when you're lying on your bed. So you may find a lot of parallels between the two levels. So in a nutshell, there is nothing new under the sun here. I wish I could be a clairvoyant and see exactly what is around and stuck to people, to tell them, oh, look, there's a big black thing on your back. But there are also other ways to realize that. And you may easily understand that what is the ego inside has a very direct connection to a possible entity on the outside. Let's say that the ego may be like the anchoring point for a certain entity or possession or a parasite. So you can observe the ego. So you're halfway through in the path towards guessing what may be outside of you, surrounding your aura and your astral coverage. So even if you don't have the power of clairvoyance, you can still guess where your weak spots are if you do a work of self-observation. So being present, and at every occasion, look at your thoughts, your feelings, your body posture, your gesturing, the way you breathe, etc. That will be a sure pointer towards your general condition and your weak points If you don't know where to start, if you basically tend to say, oh, well, but I don't have big weak points, I'm basically a good person in most senses, then ask for help from your enemies. What they say about you can probably be a good pointer. That's one of the reasons why we should thank them from time to time and even pray for them if you really want to be extreme and go the way that the Gospels dictate. But let's say at least take seriously into account what they say about us. Because our enemies, although they may not do that consciously, but they play an important part in our chance for internal development. So if you're looking for your defects and you really can't find any, then look at what really makes you feel upset. Of all the things that people say to you, of all the things that they do to you, what really makes you feel, I wish this didn't happen, or you tend to feel a bad reaction, that's a pointer. This is nothing new. I believe you've heard about this already in various sources, to use cuisine terms. And of course, it's about acknowledging that we are basically blind to our defects and imperfections at the beginning, and that's absolutely common. So there is nothing to be ashamed of. And that through the directions like difficulties, problems, or even enemies may come some pointers at what is our, let's say, priority for inner work. In a nutshell, I'm not suggesting here that we should reject all claim by shamans and sorcerers to free us from a problem. I'm sure that they can be very helpful. What I'm saying here is, first of all, be wise if you need to make such a move. Listen to more than one. Seek advice. Try self-help as well, because there are several things you can do in order to help yourself. But keep in mind that you may take off the weed, but if the roots are still there, and I'm talking about the ego, at some point those weeds may grow again. So do not expect that somebody you pay may do all the work for you. They may somehow lessen the symptoms, yes. They can save a difficult emergency situation, yes. So all of their help is welcome if they are sincere and honest workers of this astral world. But don't expect them to do miracles for you. If you had somehow invoked a problem, or the devil, or whatever you have invoked, consciously or not consciously, there was a reason for that. So even if somebody has enough strength and preparation to save you from the effects of this problem that somehow you have called onto yourself, that doesn't mean that the root of it has been cleared and solved, because the main point in order to solve the problem at the root is understanding, and that requires, first of all, seeing, that requires observation, and that requires being there. So without a proper amount of presence and self-remembering, you may not go to the final solution of your inner problem. But of course, you may get relief and solace from the help of professionals. So I would like to strike a balance between opposing views here, because extremes are normally not very healthy, and this is no exception. I will now stop the recording and open the conversation. So for our friends who are only following us online, See you next week. And for everybody else, we will now continue.